All right, guys, if you're anything like me, you want results. So let's get going with the course. Okay, so I've got things broken down into pretty easy to follow setup. I like to work with mind maps instead of the usual presentation put onto Microsoft Word. This is the way I operate. I hope you can relate to it. And with that, let's begin. So under mindset, we've got here employee mindset versus an investor mindset. What I'm going to do is just read through everything first, and where I need to add examples, I'll speak to them. So let's begin. When I was a young, aspiring, excited, business savvy 20-something, I read the book, The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. Inside there, he divided the styles of business person into 4 quadrants. There was the employee, there was the self-employed, the big business owner, so 500 employees plus, and then the investor, which / trader segment, okay? When I was going through the ranks of becoming a pro trader, the major shift in my performance came in when I let go of thinking like an employee and actually landed in the mindset of an investor. So let's start reading, and then I'll talk to you that as we go. So under the employee segment over here, an employee has been made to feel as if they constantly need to be doing something or working to get a reward. When it comes to the markets, in truth, the more you do after a trade is open, the greater the chance of you doing something that will hurt your position. This shouldn't be news to you, although it might be a big aha moment for you that the way in which you are addressing the markets should not be the same way that you address your day job. They are 2 different animals. As you'll see in the investor section, the work gets done before the position is open. Once that position is open, you should be able to allow it to do the work for you. Once that position is open, close your screens and go do something else. Because if you can't do that, that means that your preparation isn't done correctly, okay? To jump into the investor segment real quick, an investor will make money work for them. So a little story that I want to share with you is Robert Kiyosaki came to my town and he brought a whole bunch of people with him to basically pitch at us all day long. Okay, so I wanted to meet Robert Kiyosaki and see him in person. So I went to this event and we just got pitched by all these different people. And one of them was the Rich Dad, Poor Dad accredited property solutions company who said, come learn from us and you'll be a property mogul. So I went and I bought that super expensive course and I sat there only to realize that property for me back then just wasn't what I was looking for because it took too long to get a return and all the reasons I had at the time. The one thing that really stood out for me was when they said, there's a saying in property that you make your money when you buy, which shocked me initially because I had no idea what that meant at the time. It was a completely new term to me. And then I chewed on the concept and got into an understanding of when you buy a property, fighting for the best rate with the bank, trying to go in with a cheeky offer to get the property at a lower than market value, having the right suppliers on book so that you can renovate and flip the property, like making the right decisions up front is where you make your money with property. Sure, the sale comes later, but the right decisions up front is where you make your money. Why I like the analogy so much is because it absolutely applies to the market as well. Once you've made your purchase, once you've opened your position, you should be able to allow the money to work for you and not be an employee that tries to do more whilst you have no control over it. often guys are feeling anxiety, mistrust in themselves, undisciplined, disheartened, discouraged, because they're trying to do the work after they've opened their position. And that's just ludicrous. So as an employee mindset, I want you to start realizing that the work is done beforehand, and that once you've set that order, allow money to work for you. Okay, so there's a massive distinction there. If you're guilty of that, please make sure you're working on it as from this moment forth. I suppose that is a nice segue into the next point. Employees can't really afford to lose, so they are afraid of it. This will mess up your position sizing and your trade confidence. All right, so in contrast, let's have a look at what an investor will do. Investors build their portfolios over time, keeping in mind that they are likely to lose on one of their investments. Okay, these guys think about the long game. All right, so whilst an employee is feeling anxiety about their stop loss getting hit, an investor is more relaxed because in thinking about the long game, he knows that there's going to be losers along the way. So the pressure on every position that this person, an investor, is opening has dropped significantly, which evidently gives it a better chance of getting to target. I know you're guilty of it. You've definitely closed the position too soon before it actually got to its full potential, okay? An investor understands that if he interferes with an open position, he's going to lose out. Another kind of contrast to that would be perhaps if you've watched the Shark Tank. Those guys are looking to make investments in other companies, and to do so, they obviously sit at the front of the room and they do the work before they jump into that business venture with that person, because they can see the character of the person. They don't necessarily need to see the financials up front. There's just this reading and understanding of that business where they know if they funded that business, it has a high probability of doing well. At the same time, they are aware that not every business venture is going to be successful. So they're not scrambling at every single opportunity that comes across the floor. They'll be very selective. Now, an employee is going to chase that profit. An investor will be selective with the correct setups. An investor will wait for the opportune timing to put their money into a venture. So right now, just do a temperature check on yourself. Are you thinking like an employee, or are you thinking like an investor? Are you chasing the markets, enforcing your will onto the markets, or are you reading the markets, understanding its flow, and holding your capital back until that correct setup is worthy of your money going in? All right? Who are you thinking as? An employee, getting back to it, will battle to find the time. Now, if you can afford MTOPS, I know you're the kind of person who can afford a Chromebook, a MacBook Air, something that's nice and light and durable that you can have with you wherever you go. Okay? Those who battle to find the time to trade are the same guys who are going to just loop around the rat race for longer and longer and longer. An investor will identify where the return on effort will yield their highest results. So if you've got a boss or a manager, or I don't know, maybe you are a small business owner, but you got clients you have to answer to all the time. If the market is able to generate a greater income than what you're currently earning, and trust me guys, my traders that I've turned into pro traders within 6 months are earning 5 figures a week. Okay, so if your current job is paying you more than 5 figures a week, then, only then, would you put your focus over your day job then on the markets. The nice thing about the markets is that you're here to learn a skill. The money number, the money under management is almost irrelevant, because once you've dominated that skill, the variable can multiply into the millions. So are you determined to operate in the big leagues, or are you adopting an employee mindset where you're making excuses and giving yourself reason not to trade? I don't know the answer, but this is where you got to be honest with yourself. Employees battle to find the time, they find themselves too distracted, and they place their focus on things that will keep them trapped on the rat race. If you're guilty, make that shift. So the next point here is an employee will be taught to hustle and attack the problem and get into meetings with their team friends and blah, 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 blah. They're there to hustle. Investors don't even drive for themselves, man. Like, they're sitting at the back while some driver takes them through, and they're just sitting there suave, communicating on their device and just looking all like ready for a Forbes magazine photo shoot. All right. If you're overworking yourself, especially emotionally, once your position is open, you're literally draining your energy for that next position. Okay, so you've opened a position, your emotions are attached, you're watching the price go up and down as if you have any influence over it anyway. And evidently, you're just exhausting yourself and consuming unnecessary time. Here's a good point, in fact. Are you looking to trade full-time for time freedom? Because if that's the case, then staring at the charts is not freedom. That's imprisonment, all right? Once your position's open, you're latched to the keyboard. The markets own you. Whereas an investor is after and values time freedom. He doesn't want to sit in front of the screens all day. He's got better things to do, all right? And we're going to talk about using the system to provide time freedom, because we've got tools inside there that can help you work that way, all right? Also, when you're taught to hustle and attack the problem, and you're very overly active with the deception that you have any influence over open positions, your revenge trading is more likely to happen that way, as your scarcity mindset as an employee will perhaps set your stop loss too tight, and then if it opens up again, you could create another position that's going to get stopped out as well. Going back to making your money before you buy, if you put the work in beforehand and let it do the work and walk away, you're obviously not going to do that. And this is especially relevant to consolidating markets. Too many guys psych themselves out. Price moves across, their anxiety and emotions override them, they close their position, an hour later, boom, price just shoots through the moon. And they land up disheartened in a different way, because their self-trust is diminishing, they've closed their position, they've not acquired any new profit, the downward spiral kicks off. This right here, guys, is super valuable. Please take something from this. So let's close out this section. An employee will use trading potentially as a source of entertainment, perhaps a way to get their emotions going because they enjoy a little gamble. They may treat the markets as if it's a video game because you can now put your attention onto something, or like social media because there's all this variance that happens and you're getting that kick. It's all emotional driven. You can obviously hear that theme coming through here. If you address the markets as your entertainer, the markets will make you pay for treating it the same way. This is money we're dealing with, which will be a good segment into the market as a teacher. What I want you guys to realize whilst in the markets is that you're going to be conditioned by the markets. It's an opportunity to grow internally, let go of bad habits, and offer you the mechanism to let go of approaches that won't work in the world of trading. Use this as a discovery period to learn why you are or have been losing. What are your weak points? Are you following a rules list? Is that rules list printed out and next to your trade desk? Do you strictly follow your own rules? Being conditioned by the markets is a really positive thing. Yes, it comes with frustration, pain, and evidently growth. The great thing with the markets is that they're honest with you, okay? You may have a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, or with family members that have been deceived by the veil that you put up. The markets are going to dig deep into your soul to show you what is there and what you need addressing. Okay, so we'll talk about this later on in the course. They call money wounds. But for now, the truth of emotion that comes up in the markets, even the strongest guys, I've got ex-Navy SEALs and all kinds of really, I've got firefighters, macho looking men getting brought to their knees by the market at time because there are emotions inside them that they haven't dealt with, typically money wounds which have been implanted in them as a child. Okay, so we'll get to that, as I said. Until then, my recommendation is to truly allow the honesty that comes up from underneath to be something that you are aware of to work on as you become more and more fey with earning money from the markets. Write down what you're feeling. Write down what you need to work on. And allow the market to condition you into someone that is able to earn the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and more from its very generous makeup. In closing off this section, I just want to say that people think about the reward and not about the work. This is kind of cliche stuff, but it will show up. Those who want the reward are plentiful. Everyone wants the reward. But when it comes to putting in the work, that number significantly reduces to only a small percentile. Why this has worked for me so well is because I knew from a very early standpoint that trading was it for me. I couldn't go back to having a boss or a manager or a schedule where I felt guilty for arriving to a meeting 5 minutes late or anything to do with that slave life. I don't want to be a slave to anyone else's schedule ever again, and I won't. So trading for me is I either succeed at trading or I sleep under a bridge as a homeless person, okay? Because this is it for me. Which means my work ethos towards winning at trading is always going to be on point. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And that's the attitude I've had until now. And that's the reason why I can get 5 figures within a few hours on the market. And you'll be able to learn how to do so too. So don't stress about that. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to allow distractions and excuses to not pull yourself through to the end of this course and actually put the work in this time, then I suggest you just quit right now. If you're not willing to do the work, don't waste your time, quite honestly, and go do something else. Maybe this is your time to rent out a room on Airbnb or do multi-level marketing or become a YouTuber or whatever else is available. I mean, maybe buy an NFT and hope for the best. Maybe go do something else if you're not willing to put in the work here, because this will take transformation. If you're not willing to condition yourself to operate like a pro trader, then thanks for watching and bye-bye. But for everyone else who absolutely wants this, let's get going into the next video.